Welcome everyone. This is the Dancer Mobility Workshop. If that's what you were looking for, you are in the right place. My name is Tessa Cunningham Monroe, and I'm excited to bring to you today a special kinesiology workshop but with guest presenter Gabriel Shaw. For those of you who are new to our swing literacy curriculum, we've been running online dance training programs for the past 10 years, specializing in training dancers to learn and practice smarter and teachers to teach smarter. So the special workshop is something that we set up for the 190 dancers that we're taking through a 12-week boot camp version of our swing literacy dancer development program. And we knew it was a topic that many dancers struggle with, so we wanted to open it up to the public. My background in kinesiology helps me understand the biomechanics and conditioning principles that I need to coach students and to learn motor skills and move efficiently. So I know that's what's holding many dancers back in their progress, is that they're lacking mobility and or stability. So I'm excited today to introduce you to a professional kinesiologist who specializes in helping people get more stability so they can enjoy their dance more and progress faster. So please wave and welcome Gabriel Shaw. Hello, Gabriel.
Hello, thank you for coming.
All right, so would you like to do a little introduction of yourself? And then I'm going to come back afterwards and explain to people how they can operate the interaction of our meeting today.
That sounds good, and I see already some people have posted some notes in the comments, so I really appreciate that. Do you want to pin my video so just people can see me as I'm introducing?
You betcha.
Thank you so much. So hi everybody, my name is Gabriel Shaw and I'm with muvespace.com. And just like Tessa said, I'm a kinesiologist, and what I specialize in is helping people perform or engage more fully in the activities that they love. And I think we need to move as a culture to talking more and more about the activities that we love and how we can engage more fully in those activities, as opposed to just this vague notion of getting fit, which doesn't necessarily mean anything. So I'm really happy to help you with that today. And I'm also a big fan of West Coast Swing. So I'm a West Coast Swing dancer myself. And so I love West Coast Swing. And so I'm really, really thankful for Tessa for not only providing this opportunity for me, but for also continuing her work of helping people practice and teach dance smarter. So hopefully what we're going to do today is help you to train for dance smarter.
Awesome. So thank you very much for that introduction. I'm sure everybody's very excited to get started. I just wanted to give you a couple of administrative things. So what I'm going to be doing is basically sitting back and enjoying this workshop as well with you as a host. And I'm going to be managing questions, kind of like a secretary on the side. So if you have a question, what I'd like you to do is use the chat box. You can find the chat box by going in your Zoom controls, clicking on the chat, and then it'll pull open a separate window. So that's where you can type your questions, and it's much easier for me to tell that you are making questions versus comments. If you precede your questions with 3 question marks, that would be amazing. If you feel like you just want to say hallelujah, or you want to give a thumbs up or some kind of show of agreement, use the reactions button down below. I believe you have a thumbs up icon as well as a hands clapping icon. So you can use those 2 ways to make this workshop really interactive for you and make sure we get all your questions answered. Now, because Gabriel's going to be going on kind of a flow, if it seems like he doesn't answer your question right away, what we're going to be doing is kind of storing them, and then he'll get to it when he comes to a natural break point, and there will be time for some Q&A at the end. So without any further ado, if anybody has any questions right now in the chat, about maybe what to expect or what the protocol is, go ahead and type it with 3 question marks. Otherwise, I'm going to sit back and enjoy and let Gabriel take over. There you go. Take it away.
Thanks a lot, Tessa. I really appreciate that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get us started with some movement right away and just warm up. But while we do that, what I'd like you to do is I'll get some kind of a foam roller. So we talked about this in the workshop description. But if you have something like this at home, go ahead and grab it. This is a lacrosse ball, which I bought just at any sporting goods store for about $4. This is a foam roller. Anything like this is going to work. We're going to start off with something like that. So go ahead and grab that. If you have any kind of soft ball, like literally a softball or a tennis ball or something, that's going to work. If you don't have foam roller or ball, don't worry about it. We're only going to do a couple of those moves, and then you'll have access to this information afterwards. So should you decide to get one down the road, you can always come back to this information. So before we start with any of that, though, let's just start with a quick mobility warm-up, and this is going to help us just get a little bit loose and relaxed. And this is something that also a lot of you will probably know if you have done any of Tessa's dancer development training or footwork agility challenge. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with a leg swing, first of all, nice and easy, nice and loose. We're just going to start getting warmed up. So the first thing I want you to do is just swing your leg forward and backward, nice and easy. And try to keep your back nice and neutral. So you might feel if you go too far back, you might feel this temptation to arch your lower back. So what I would encourage is instead, maybe just a little bit of core engagement on the way back. So you get just a little bit of stretch through your hip flexor. And what you're not doing is just doing that whole arch from your lower back, but actually through the leg. Go ahead and still get those foam rollers. If you need a minute to grab those, that's fine. We're going to do both sides. If you want to add something to that, then what I want to suggest you do is start a little bit turning with your arms just like this. And so already we're starting to prepare for a little bit of that contra body rotation that we're going to talk a little bit more today. And I know a lot of dancers struggle with mobility for in their dance. So we're going to work on that. While people are just going to get the rest of their lacrosse balls, we're going to go ahead and switch. We're going to do the other side. So you can start with that easy leg swing. And if you want, turning a little bit through the arms and the body as well. I want you to keep that up, and I want to just talk about what we're going to do today, which is we're going to do some myofascial release with the foam roller. We're going to do some stretches. We're going to do some whole body mobility drills, and then afterwards, you guys are going to have access to this recording in the PDF, so you can integrate some of these drills into your own movement practice, or into your own workouts, or into your own warm-ups or cools down from dance. And we'll give you all that information you can take on afterwards. Okay, so everybody should have a lacrosse ball or a foam roller or anything like that. If you have a foam roller, you can go ahead and use that. And what we're going to do, the first thing is we're just going to roll the bottom of our foot, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to just take this foam, your ball, whatever, right on the ground. I'm going to put this basically just right underneath the bottom of my foot. And what I like to say with this one is it's called a release of your soul. Right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to release our soul. The first thing I want you to do is just go forward and backward nice and gently in the bottom of your foot. So you're just not putting any really pressure on the ball, just getting the nerves at the bottom of the foot used to the feeling of the ball. And I'm just going to give us a 2-minute timer here because we're going to explore a little bit of release on one foot for 2 minutes. And then we're going to switch and we're going to do 2 minutes on the other foot. What I want you to do is put that ball right behind the ball of your foot and right in the center of your foot, right behind the ball of the foot and right in the center, and then just allow your foot to collapse over the ball. You might put your heel on the ground, and just like a wet mop head, let your whole foot spread out over the ball. You can, if it feels comfortable, increase the amount of body weight that you're putting, and you should start to feel a nice sense of release. It doesn't have to be super, super hard, but you can really go as hard as you feel comfortable. Playing with the edge of discomfort is really good here, but in any of these exercises, we don't want to push past discomfort or push past pain. We want to kind of play in that edge zone between comfort and discomfort. What I'm going to do with this ball is I'm just going to roll it a little bit more on the inside. So I'll come up closer to the camera so you can see, but I'm just moving on the inside edge of my foot now, still along the ball, and letting that relax. I'm going to come up close so you can see what I'm doing here. I started in the center right behind the ball of my foot, and now I'm moving a little bit to that inside edge, anywhere along that inside edge. You don't have to move it very much. You can just put some pressure on there and let it relax. And then in just a moment, we're going to go to that outside edge. So you might explore a little bit for just another 30 seconds on the inside edge or the outside edge. You can stay still. You don't have to do a lot of vigorous pushing. Just let your foot go ahead and relax. So another thing I want to talk about what we're doing today is that what we're doing is we're focusing on mobility. Now, some of you are going to have pain or stiffness or dysfunction in your dance or in your activities or in your body because of lack of mobility, of lack of looseness or connection or coordination. And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. Okay, just relax. Let's relax. Let's switch foot and let's go to the other foot. So again, what I want to do with the bottom of the foot is just go back and forth on the bottom. So you get the bottom of your foot feeling nice and loose and relaxed. And we're just going to do 2 minutes on this side, starting with just exposing those nerves at the bottom of the foot to the feeling of the pressure. And this is a good way you can start anytime you do myofascial release on your own. And then once you feel comfortable, you can start to just like that wet mop head, or I imagine almost like an elephant foot. It kind of just spreads out around the ball, just let it release. You can start putting a little bit more weight on the ball. So continuing to talk about what we're going to do today is some of you have that lack of that discomfort or lack of ability dancing or your other activities because of mobility, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is really focus on mobility. Now sometimes those pain and discomfort, that's going to come from stability or needing to strengthen certain muscles or some stabilizer muscles. Let's go on the inside of the foot now, so going through the inside of the foot, and that's a whole other thing, which is stability training or strengthening, which is just a whole other side of fitness and preparing you for dance, with which if you like today, then we might do a little teaser and maybe get you stability training later. Obviously in your own workouts, you're going to be combining mobility training and stability training on your own. Today we're just going to focus on stability, but if you like it, you can bug test and we can talk about at the end, moving forward, doing a stability training. Let's go to the outside edge. But just so everybody knows, we're doing mobility training, and that's just one small piece of the pie, but it's definitely going to help you feel a little bit looser and connected and coordinated. A big part of mobility is really just relaxing. So what I want you to do when you do the myofascial release here at the bottom of your foot, and as we do all the activities today, is really try to focus on release. Rather than think about pushing, reaching, forcing, instead I want you to view your body more as a smart tool, or a body that has a nervous system, which is what you have, and focus a little bit more on that release. So if you know what I'm talking about as opposed to the release with the mobility, type in the comments yes for me. Hit yes if you know what I'm talking about with the difference between stability and mobility, and what we're going to be doing today with release work. Let's dish that ball for just a moment, and what I want you to feel, just play around with the bottom of your foot. Good, I'm getting a lot of yeses in that comments, and that's what I like to see. That's awesome. That's also showing me that you know how to use that comments. Feel free to put your questions as we go through there, and Tessa's going to help me keep an eye out. Just feel the bottom of your feet for a minute and just feel how that feels now to be a little bit released. One thing you might try is you might try to just reach down and feel how you might feel a little bit less tense to the bottom of your foot, or through even the whole back of your body from just doing that release. So if you feel a good release just from that myofascial release, type in the comments, let me know if you feel a lot looser. What I really would advise for you all, so this is the first tool I'm going to give you, is a $4 piece of equipment that you can put in any luggage that you take to any dance convention ever. And then at the end of the night, when you're done dancing, you come back to your hotel room, 2 minutes in the bottom of each foot, and you're going to find so much decreased pain at the bottom of your foot. You're going to loosen up through your Achilles, I know, which often gives a lot of dancers trouble when they're dancing. So that's one tool that you can take right away at the end of this. Save the foam roller. We're going to come back and do a little bit at the end. But first, I want to do a little bit more movement and explain to you the different areas of how we can move a little bit differently. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is explore our hips. So try to find a natural stance just like this, and then do a little bit of exploring, taking the hips forward and backward, and just feel that for a moment. Feel, you might feel as the hips go back, there's some weight trying to go to the back, or you might feel as the chest comes forward, some weight trying to go forward. See if you can avoid doing that and just bend at the hips and straighten out, trying to keep all the weight over the middle of your foot. What you might notice is you get a little stretch to the back of your hamstrings here, especially if you're not collapsing over like this. So if you collapse, you're not really going to get that stretch. So we want to try to be nice, good, straight posture and do our hinge at the hips, little stretch through the hamstrings, and come back up. What this is actually an exploration of pitch. So I'm going to give you guys 1 minute to explore with that. And I'm going to show you also over on this wall right here so you can see. I might even go up against a wall, like 1 foot away from the wall, or even a little bit further than that. And I might try to sit my bum toward the wall and touch the wall without trying to let any weight fall against the wall. So what we're doing is we're exploring with pitch here. So if you are involved in some of Tessa and Myles' dancer development training, they talk a lot about pitch, and this is really important for dance. And we're going to, in any sport, and what we're going to do here is separate that from a little bit of some other movements which we might do in the hips to help that clarify. You should also be getting a little stretch through the back of your legs, which is also good for those times when you're trying to dance and make sure that you're getting your heel all the way to the floor, and we're not kind of dancing with a like a dinosaur just like that. Explore that for one more second. Let me see if people have any questions real quick. Okay, yeah, really good question about the knees in this exercise. So we're going to move on and do something very similar, but really good question about the knees. So I'm not squatting. This is not the same as a squat like this. You might even try this a little bit at home. You can feel the difference between a squat and a hinge. Okay, if you're someone who's somewhat familiar with fitness, we're talking about kind of the difference between a squat and a deadlift, which would be more like this. And one is a lot more for the back of your body, and one is a lot more for the front. Squatting is obviously good, and we can talk about that in a fitness context, but what happens a lot when we talk about pitch that I find as a kinesiologist, and I know I see a lot of dancing as well, is that people don't know what hinging is. And that's why if you're not sure what the difference between squatting or a hinge is, come up to your wall, bend your knees just a little bit, and then try to take your hips back and try to touch your bum to the wall. You should feel a little stretch through the back of your legs, and then come on up. So are my knees bent? Yes, but they're not bending and straightening like this. They're just staying bent the same throughout the whole course of the movement, just like you would want them to be. If you were dancing, you would have a slight pitch in your hips, but your knees can bend and straighten freely on their own. And that's what we're doing here at the beginning of this mobility workshop, starting to separate these two different movements. So that's a really good question. I really appreciate that. Let's move on to something different where we're going to also kind of isolate two separate parts of movement that often get people confused. And we're going to do what's called posterior or backward tilting the pelvis and anteriorly tilting the pelvis, or forward tilting. So what I really would recommend if you have a wall is for this one, just go ahead and put your whole back against the wall. Just lay your whole back against the wall real quick. My heels are about 4 inches away from the wall or so. I'm going to come right here just so you can see me a little bit better. My heels are maybe 4 inches away from the wall or so. My back is up straight against the wall. Knees are slightly bent. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to start rolling the pelvis on the wall without moving the rest of our body off the wall. So we're going to tilt the tailbone forward and then tuck the tailbone under. Kind of push your tailbone against the wall, arch your lower back, and then round the tailbone under. You might start to breathe, take a big deep breath in. As you tilt back. So I'll give you a couple minutes to explore. With every exercise we do, I'm going to just, I'll do some demos and then I'll give you a couple minutes to explore. So this one, you're just tucking. So this is usually, I say a tuck or tucking the tailbone under. It's okay if your back rounds a little bit. And then I say this is a tilt or forward tilt. It's like I'm pushing my tailbone out or pouring the wine out the front. So here we're doing a mobility workshop, so it's fine to kind of explore where is the end range of each exercise. And what I also want you to explore in the next couple of minutes is that how much different this tuck and tilt is from this hinge. So it's not the same as the hinge. And you'll notice that if your knees stay basically still as you do this tuck and tilt against the wall. So if you are going to be at home trying to do this like this, and it's really not a movement in the knees, it's really just a movement in the pelvis. You can start to feel the difference. And notice my pitch is staying the same. Okay, so I'm straight up and down and then going forward. And if you want to make that even a little bit harder, you might come out from the outside of the wall, bend over just a little bit. And so you have a little bit of that hinge, and see if you can keep this same hinge or the same pitch, and then go back to doing that same exercise. So you can see I'm isolating my tilt and tuck from the pitch. Do that for another 30 seconds. Let me know if you have questions. Again, this is really good for a little bit of a stretch of the back. So people who get back discomfort, when you like low back discomfort from standing in workshops or for dancing, this is a good one just to loosen up the lower back either before as a warm-up or kind of after when you go to bed. Don't forget you can put in some comments in the comment box, and then we're going to move on. This one, I'm relaxing all my weight against the wall. So good question in the comment box. For this one, I'm actually relaxing all of my weight against the wall. When I do the hinge, and you might just explore the difference between those two for just a moment. When I do the hinge, I'm not putting any weight on the wall because I want to get used to this feeling of being able to hinge at the hips and stay perfectly balanced over the middle of my foot. When I'm doing the tuck and tilt, it's okay to relax on the wall because I'm using that wall for feedback to tell me what my pelvis is doing and what the rest of my body is doing. So for this one, it's totally okay for you to just kind of fall all the way back against the wall, and then you can just use that wall for feedback like that. Don't worry if you don't get it, because like I said, you're gonna have access to this recording after. I've got a PDF I've made for you with all pictures and instructions and how many to do and when to do them. That's gonna be coming at you at the end. So we're gonna keep moving on, but you can always revisit any of these tools later. So okay, so, and then there'll also be some question and answer at the end. So let's move on to talking about the ribs a little bit. So what I want you to do is I want you to come down and sit into a little bit of a hinge. And I want you to push your knees out slightly and engage your core by pulling your belly button a little bit towards your lower back. So now this is a little bit of a teaser for some of the stuff we're going to be covering in the stability training workshop, if you guys like it, which is just how to engage this core and how to engage our hip stabilizers. If you're not familiar with that, don't worry, just try to maintain this neutral position. And then what I want you to do is I want you to try to turn using only your rib cage side to side. And if this is confusing for you in any way with the knees, or even if you just want to try a different version, go ahead and play with that, and I'll give you 2 minutes to explore with that one. You can do the same thing in a chair, or this is a good one for when you're sitting and watching this competition, say at a convention, or even when you're sitting in your office chair, something like that. You can do the same thing, slight engagement with the core, belly button comes towards the lower back, turn the rib cage one way, turn the rib cage the other way. Just doing it sitting on a chair. You might breathe in as you turn. Breathe out as you turn back. So again, we're starting to think about this release. So now we can start to use the breath to help encourage a little bit of release. Or if you're exploring standing up, that's great. I'm going to give you 1 more minute to try that one. What you might want to try with this one is you might grab a dowel or like a broom handle or anything. You don't have to do this, but something that you can try is just to take this dowel, because what this is going to do is give me a little feedback as to where I'm turning. And that's going to prevent me from doing a lot of side crunching as I do this. So if you can see me here, what I don't want to be doing is I don't want to be side crunching. You see how this direction of this dowel is going every which way? No matter how much I'm sitting, even if I'm just like this, slightly core engaged, I'm just turning side to side. I'm going to give you 40 more seconds to play with this one. Or something you might explore if you want to make it a little bit harder, engage those hip stabilizers, engage that core, hinge a little bit more, and then try to turn from here. So this one I use so much because we get to work our core stabilizers and our hip stabilizers, even a little bit in the feet as well. We can talk about all of that later, but we also get to practice our pitch like we were talking about earlier, and then we get to do the same upper back rotation. This upper back rotation is not only really good to prevent pain in your regular lifestyle, but it's going to come in really handy when we start getting into some more contra body movements, which we're going to do in this workshop. And I know it's a really big part of a lot of people's struggle with mobility dancing. So hit me with questions that you have on that one. What we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and move on. And what I want you to do while I'm looking at your questions, I want you to just take a few deep breaths, relaxing. So breathe in. Maybe lift your shoulders up, and then breathe out, relax into the ground. Good, breathe in all the way up. When you breathe out, try to just relax your whole body. This is going to help with going into exercises we're going to do in the future. Do just a couple more like that as I check and see what kind of questions that we have. Yeah, good. Okay, I see some really good comments. I love this. Peter Chen is asking about thoracic rotation. What I'm going to do, Peter, is I'm going to come back to that one. Okay, so hit me later, but let's put that in the parking lot and I'll come back. So thanks a lot for the question. Let's go ahead and relax with that breathing, and let's do the same thing with a little bit of our lower body. So I want you to breathe in, stand straight up, breathe out, settle down, try to bend into the ground a little bit. So a big part of what I want to do today, besides just throw out you exercises, and I'm going to throw out a lot of exercises that you can all use, but I want to do is really help you train smarter by helping you think differently about the exercises that you're already doing. So a lot of you are already doing stretching and mobility training already, or myofascial release like we did with the ball. And one thing I want to encourage is maybe taking a slightly different look at that in order to train a little bit smarter. One of the things I want to encourage you to do when you're doing mobility training is to get the sense of release that we're doing right now. If you can feel the sense of your whole body relaxing into the ground, I want you to write that in the comments for me real quick. Feel a sense of, if you're feeling the sense of relaxing your whole body, write that in the comments. That's exactly what we're going for with this release work. Let's add a little bit of this release work to a movement where we're doing a little bit more of this twisting, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break this down just in a neutral position. I want you to breathe in, I want you to stand up, I want you to turn at your rib cage, a little bit engaging your core, and I want you to reach forward and backward with your hands. And then I want you to breathe out, do that same, relax into the ground, breathe in, come up to the other side. Breathe out. And I'm going to give you a couple minutes to explore with this one. So some of you may have danced with me already in workshops or in conventions and stuff like that, or I know I have a few friends who are coming to this workshop because I do a lot of dancing. I may not be the best dancer in the world, but I've never been accused of being a stiff dancer. And one of the reasons why I've never been accused of being a stiff dancer, and people usually talk about dancing with me as very gooey, is because I practice exercises like this, where I'm actually practicing not only moving in a way that's very similar to our West Coast swing, but also in a way that's trying to release, relax the tension. I'm going to add on to that. I just want to see if anybody has questions about this, and then I'm going to add on and make that a little bit. Are we going to approach exercise for the neck? That's a great question. Thanks for asking. Let me put that. Feeling it, nice, getting a whole release to the body. That's awesome. Do you feel that yoga helps with the gooiness? Okay, so that's really good. I really appreciate that question about the yoga helping with the gooiness. Let me add something onto this exercise, and then I'll address that. So what I want you to do with this with this same exercise that we're doing is now explore going one foot in front of the other. So I want you to take one foot in front of the other foot in back, just like this. If I know a lot of Tess has been working with you in the dancer development training about making sure your feet are always a little bit out to the side. If you want to make sure your feet are out to the side with this one, that's okay. But I want you to make sure the middle of your knees are always going over the middle toes. Because in exercise, sometimes we're going out with the feet, we let our knees come in. Then sometimes because of that, sometimes we encourage just being straightforward with the toes, because that's going to help the knees be in a more inline position. So if you're going to step one foot back and one foot forward, I don't care how you do it, just make sure the knees are in a line over the middle toe. The easiest way is just to do that with the toes facing forward, because then you get the hips facing forward as well. Most of my weight's coming in my front foot. I want you to explore with the same exercise. Breathe in, reach up, breathe out, release. Breathe in, reach up, breathe out, release. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Explore on one side, explore on the other. Hit me with the questions in the comments if you have, and then I'm going to answer that yoga question. Questions, okay, any suggestions? Good, okay, I really appreciate all these questions. Some of them we're gonna go into a parking lot and we can deal with a little bit more of the question and answer session. I'm seeing a lot of people release and a lot of people putting comments that they're feeling that release. That's awesome. Don't forget to try a little bit with that other side. And let me answer this yoga question. So again, we're talking in this workshop about how to train smarter for dancing. Again, I hope that some of the stuff I can say is going to apply to a lot of other exercises you do, and I'm sure a lot of you are training in yoga as well. What I would say about yoga is that there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, or there's a way that's a little bit smarter or more beneficial for your dancing than another way, right? So, and one of the things I would suggest is that you do it with the same sense of release. Okay, so a lot of us, the reason why we're stiff and tense is in our dancing is not actually because we lack the mobility. It's not because, it's not because you can't turn your rib cage if I asked you to, because I just asked you to and you're doing it, but you're not doing it in your dance. And the reason why is because it's just we're holding tension, we're very stiff. So in your yoga class, I'm going to give you 30 more seconds and I'm going to add on to this exercise. In your yoga class, if you are someone who is trying to force as much as you can, hold the positions as long as you can, push, 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 reach, 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 then that actually might be working the opposite way in terms of helping you actually dance in a more elastic way, because what you're doing is you're just training yourself to be more and more tense or more and more stiff. So what I would encourage if you're doing your yoga or any of your mobility training is you do it with the release in mind. Make sure you're releasing. And then the other thing I would do is make sure you're doing repetitions. So rather than think about holding one stretch for a really long time, what I would advise is like you come up and down in the stretch a few times, or just when you're doing loops, if you're doing vinyasa flows or something, that you're going to do multiple vinyasa flows so you get these repetitions the same way you would in strength training, which we'll talk about more about that repetitions a little bit more at the end as well. So now I'm going to add something to this releasing exercise. Okay, we're doing this with one foot, and I'm standing and I'm releasing. And now what I want you to do is, as one hand comes forward, I want you to take the opposite foot forward and see if you can't do a little bit of a walk or backwards. So what you should feel is this is starting to help you with the mobility in your whole body, because it's integrating our whole body. Again, mobility is something that's happening for the nervous system. When it comes to the science of stretching, a lot of the stretching is for the nervous system, so that means the whole body. So what we're doing right here is we're integrating the whole body, which is what we use for dancing. We're also doing is we're integrating a lot of this hip rotation and rib cage rotation into walking, just like we would want to be doing in West Coast swing dancing. Yeah, inhales and exhales. We can talk more about that. Yoga with release conscious. Yeah, nice, really good.
Hey, Gabriel.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more about what exactly you meant by releasing, specifically in yoga. I just want to make sure people have a really good understanding of how to do this release that you're talking about, when, and exactly what it is they should be feeling for to make sure they're doing it right.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, and we will, as we do more stretches, we'll kind of talk more about that as well. But it's really simple. Let me add another one to this one. So, if you've had enough time, come back to this one. Let me work this, and then I'll come back to that question. I really appreciate what that was released, and we'll talk about that. But I want to keep people moving too. With this exercise that we were just doing, where we're walking, and again, you can make this a little bit harder or easier too. You can do a little bit more of a lunge if you want. You can add a little bit more with your back foot if you want. So you can work your back foot as well. But what I want you to do real quick here and explore, as I addressed, is what I just heard Tessa was saying, is to try to do a little bit of walking, making this very big. Try making this exercise really big. Reach out, twist, reach high with the top of your head. And then I want you to explore from that place of making it really big and swinging and sloshing. Then I want you to explore making it a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller. And keep making it a little bit smaller, keep making it a little bit smaller until the pulse in your knees is going a little bit more back as opposed to forwards. And then what you're going to find is that you're basically just walking. You're doing that West Coast swing walking. So explore with that. Make that a little bit smaller. Maybe go a little bit bigger. Make it a little bit smaller. Explore with that with a little bit of the two. And let me address this release. What I mean with that release, and the reason why we started with this rolling out the bottom of the foot, is that we can feel when we do the myofascial release, and we're going to go back to it later, is we can feel the sense of when our tissues let go. So there's a big difference between holding on and letting go. And this actually this is something that you can train. It takes a little bit more practice. But in other words, it's the same thing as what we were just doing with the shoulders up. So you might even go back to this one now. Shoulders up, breathe in. This is holding. Breathe out, let go. This is letting go. So when you're doing your yoga, if you're finding, what we can do is you can do that a few more times to experiment with the shoulders up and down, or you can come back that hinge that we were doing before. So when I'm coming down and doing this hinge, if I come down to here, I can feel a stretch in the back of my legs. Now, if I come up just a little bit, I can feel the tension in my legs release, and I can stand a little more comfortable here. As we do more stretches later on today, that's going to make a little more sense. If you go too far, you're going to feel, or some of you may feel, that the muscles instinctively contract. That's what's called a stretch reflex. It's the same reflex when you go to the doctor, they hit your knee and your leg comes. It's a response of the muscle tissue to actually contract in response to that stretch. What we want to do, is, whether it's myofascial release or stretching, is initiate our Golgi tendon organ, which is a relaxation response, which happens with pressure and not necessarily with stretch. So you just want to go far enough that you get a little bit of pressure, and then you can feel that sense of release. Now, it's hard sometimes for people to feel this, and that's one reason. There are other reasons too to do repetitions, but that's one reason repetitions are good. If you just come down and then come back up a few times, you're going to start to be able to feel that end range. You're going to start to be able to feel your true end range in a way where if you're just pushing, then you're not going to be able to feel. So I hope that answers that, but we can do a little bit more Q&A on that later. You can do another one of my Tai Chi workshops or anything like that. We talk a lot about that in Tai Chi. Yeah, the hip flexor and pelvis area, we'll try to throw some at the end. Appreciate that. Yeah, the hip replacement, yeah, I'll try to keep throwing modifications, yeah. Yeah, don't worry about that. It doesn't always respond. Somebody just said about the doctor, and it doesn't always respond the same way. Some people don't have that same patellar tendon reflex. That doesn't mean you don't have the same stretch reflex in your other tendons, or whether it's going to be stretching. It still could be, but there's a lot of things that can happen with that. So somebody just commented about the doctor's office. Does that mean something is concerned? And it doesn't necessarily mean. Just some people, you've been hitting that knee so many times, you just don't have that anymore. Okay, relax. Let's do just one more like that, and we're going to go into a little bit more of a stretch. And then I do have a few things to throw at you, so I want to keep time moving for you guys. The next one I just want to try that same release, and we'll come back to that too, is just in the center, so we can explore this release a little bit more. So I want you to breathe in. I want you to reach both directions with your fingers. Reach towards the top of the sky with the top of your head, and reach to the ground with your feet. And then as you breathe out, I want you to just let your arms fall, hinge a little bit. So because I'm hinging, the arms can come basically right in front. These loosening exercises, so I call these loosening exercises, similar like the one I did before. They're not so much stretches as they're really just relaxing exercises. These loosening exercises are really good to do in a warm-up before you go dancing. So now what I want to do is, if you want to make this warm-up a little bit harder, you can add a little bit of that torso rotation at the bottom and send one hand in front and one hand in back. And here now we're getting a little bit of a shoulder stretch at the same time. So I'm going to breathe in and I'm going to breathe out. So this is kind of a little bit of a bonus exercise. Don't worry if you don't get it right away. We're just doing a releasing. But I wanted to throw this bonus exercise so you can feel really what I mean between the tension and the releasing. That tension and releasing is something that you might try to do in yoga as well. Think about it. Stretch, compression. That's the name of the game. Balancing yin and yang. That's the name of the game of everything here on earth. So it's just like in our dance. So here it's I'm stretching and then kind of releasing, right? Stretching, releasing, or tense, reaching up with the top of the head, reaching out with the fingers, reaching down with the feet, and then releasing. And then I'm adding a little bit of torso twist. I'm just going to check the questions, and then we're going to move on. It's just kind of a bonus. Just allow it to be exploratory and playful. Thanks for the question, Tessa, and we can come back to those things. Yeah, so none of this should hurt. So if you are, if something is hurting, and that's the same thing when I was saying about the release. So if something's hurting, I would just advise you do a little bit less, okay? So that's number one, is I would just advise you do a little bit less. The other thing that I would advise is when we're doing the torso rotation, and this is going to come with some neck exercises, and if we kind of move through, I can throw some neck exercises at the end as well. But as we're turning, I would actually advise that you keep your head straight forward. And then this way, what's happening is it's actually only my back, my upper back, which gets stiff, that is turning, and you're not turning a little bit with the neck, which it just kind of actually takes away from what we're trying to do with the exercise and starts working a little bit of the neck. So that might cause a little neck discomfort. Another thing I can help for you guys that might be a little bit help for the neck as well is a tuck of the chin. So this is a little bit bonus for you guys too. You can explore. A lot of us are in this position all the time. I want you to take your chin and press it straight back, like you're trying to rub your shirt collar with the back of your neck, or you're trying to lift up through the back of your head. And you should feel actually it gives you a little bit of a stretch, and then you might just kind of relax. Do that a couple times, and then just see if you can find a place that's somewhat comfortable. It's not too much of a stretch, but maybe a little bit. And then that's a good place to be doing these twists from as well. So that way I'm not trying to do twists with the neck out like this. This chin tuck I do for so many people for so many things. Don't tell the Wednesday people I taught you that one, because that's the secret for you guys only. Okay. Yeah, okay, so sweet. So the head forward made a difference for one person. So that's awesome. Let's add now just a little bit more of a stretch into the same torso rotation that we were doing before, okay? So, and this is a little bit going to be for the shoulders. And this is going to help with your shoulder stabilizer muscles as well. So I want you to reach out both directions just like this, and then let your arms come a little bit forward. So it's like you're hugging a big tree, okay? So the reason why I don't come back all the way is because when we come back, then we get into kind of that military style posture, which our shoulders pinching together and our lower back arching, that we don't want to do. So if I go a little bit forward, that helps me stay in a little bit better posture. Okay, so I'm a little bit more upright, and it's a little bit easier on my shoulders. And now what I want you to do is I want you to engage your core a little bit, turn as much as you can one side and then the other without turning too much from the hips. Notice I can't get all the way straight forward and straight back, and that's totally good. And then I want you to come towards the center, roll the arms backwards. So I'm going to keep my core engaged a little bit. I'm going to let my arms stay a little bit in front of my body. I'm not overarching the back. I'm just keeping nice and up straight in my back. And then I'm going in a backward circle. And then what I want you to do here is I want you to reach out through the fingers and through the elbows, so that when you come up to your circle, you're not we're not shrugging, but we're reaching out a little bit with the elbows. You see how as I reach out, the elbows come up and the shoulders come down. This is actually a really important kind of trick for dance posture as well, with that shoulder reaching out. We'll talk a little bit more about that another time. You might tuck your chin like we were talking about a little bit here as well, so you keep your neck really nice and long and allow your shoulder blades to move freely. And you might try to go a forward circle as well. And you should be starting to feel here, once you get a feeling for your back staying up straight, you might get a little bit of stretch between the top of your head and your tailbone. You might get getting a little stretch in your upper back as you roll back. You shouldn't be feeling a lot of engagement through your shoulder blades. So if your upper back is feeling like it's like back spasm or pinching, that's because you're pinching together your shoulder blades. Don't do that. Just keep the arms nice and long. Keep the chest nice and broad. Reach out forward and backward. And if you've got that rotation, then I want you to add the same thing we were adding before, which is to do it in a split stance. So do a forward stance, try to do a little bit of that same rotation. Here you might try to keep your pelvis facing forward as you turn to the side, and that way we're still getting that turn side to side, just like we did before. And then when you step forward one foot, it's the opposite hand that comes forward. Step forward with the other foot, opposite hand that comes forward. Roll a little bit through your feet here, push down to the ground in the middle of the feet. I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to explore that one. Step forward, step backward, and explore going forward and backward. It's always the opposite hand. It's always the opposite hand moving forward with the foot. So that's called that contra body movement that we do so much in our dancing. Let me coming to comments. If you have questions, let me know. I'm seeing a lot of people questions. It's so good. I love seeing all the questions. If we don't get to all of them, we'll do a little bit later. Yeah, this is like a backstroke, or it could be kind of like a front stroke for people who are swimmers. It's obviously a little bit different because we're keeping our arms straight, but actually this is actually a good warm up for swimming as well, just like it's a good warm up for dancing, or also a good one to add to your workouts too, right? Like as a warm up for a workout as well. And then what you might add with this one is a little bit of roll through your feet. So as I come forward, I can push off the ground with my back foot. This is a little bit of a stretch, pushing, coming up, step. I'm getting a little bit of stretch in my back foot, pushing. And it's a little bit like kind of opposite of a foot roll, but then of course you go back, it's the same, but it's just to get a little more foot mobility. A big part of what we're trying to do here is, again, is integrate the whole body. Try to explore that for one more minute. Let me know if you have other questions. It's looking really good. The head pinching, yeah. Somebody's asking about the chin. I call this a chin tuck. If you go online, you're gonna see a lot of information about a chin tuck. You can do that one against the wall, and that's gonna be really helpful. And then try to keep your neck nice and long. Just think neck long. In all my exercises, I don't push it, I don't force it. I just think neck long, neck long, neck long. So that should help. We can do a little bit more neck stuff as well. I do a lot of work with private people as well. So some of you commented about specific conditions you have and stuff like that. And it's gonna be hard for me, in a room of 60 people to address like specific conditions, but I'm more than happy to do that in one-on-one or in one of my classes. Yeah, but I really appreciate that. Okay, good. And I know there's a lot of questions there. We'll have some time for question and answer at the end, but I want to keep us moving on through a little bit more material. Let's give the back a rest for a little bit, and let's come a little bit to ankle mobility. So I just threw out a little bit of ankle mobility at that one. Let's isolate the ankle just like we did the hips and start talking a little bit about that. So one ankle mobility exercise that I want to give you guys, and this goes in the same concept of doing repetitions of your stretches like we talked about before, is a stretch for your calf and a stretch for your instep. So if I come to the same split stance that we were doing before, and I drop my heel to the ground, you should probably feel a little bit of stretch through the back of your calf here, okay? And then if you roll forward, let the toes roll forward, press your heel to the ground in front, all my weight's on this foot, you might even use a chair or something for balance, then I can feel a little stretch across the instep of my foot. So right now what we're doing is we're going to increase the ability for us to foot roll by giving us a little bit more room to go each direction, okay? So what I want you to do is keep all the way into your front foot, and then just nice and slowly push the inside of your foot forward, push the heel down to the ground. Push the inside of your foot forward, push the heel down to the ground. This really should be feeling really good on the instep. If you're not feeling a stretch in your calf, you can take that foot back a little bit more, little stretch through the instep. No weight on that back foot, okay? I'm gonna give you some time to explore this. And then ask me if you have questions. I'll tell you when to change feet, okay? Just going back and forth nice and easy, practicing both those repetitions that we were talking about, and then also that release. Nice. Someone's saying they were having a stiff shoulder in the back from Simone. So that's great. Had a stiff shoulder back and now is feeling looser because we're doing loosening mobility exercise for it, right? So that's great. And that's the exact kind of thing that we want. And again, sometimes somebody's asking about if stiffness is only one side and the other. Part of the reason that we're doing these integrative exercises to connect the whole nervous system is to help balance from one side to the other. Some of those stiffness things could be from instability especially if it's like in your connection arm. So even though sometimes we think things are tight or they feel tense or tight, sometimes that is they're tense or tight, but other times it's that they're weak. So we want to address that in a stability exercise. But these exercises that we're doing today will definitely do a lot to loosen the tension in the shoulder. So I would say is just keep practicing those, and then come to our stability exercise when we do one later. Love those comments. Switch sides if you haven't already. So I'm just going to turn this way so you can see. Sitting back here, find a little bit of that stretch. Find a little bit of the stretch of the instep, and then I want you to go back and forth. So just this is how I usually practice, by the way. If I'm doing a warm up or a cool down, or before I go out dancing, I always do a joint mobility warm up just like this before I start dancing, because it's not only about feeling better dancing, which is important to me, but it's actually also about performing better dancing, because I'm getting my tendons and ligaments and my nervous system ready to perform a lot of the movements that it's going to be asked to do. And I hope that you guys can see, if you do a warm up like this, how that's going to help your foot rolling, because it's going to look like a lot more rolling if I have this much range of motion, as opposed to if I only have this much range of motion. It's going to look like a lot more rolling. So right now, and this is going for swimming too, by the way. Somebody was talking about swimming. This is a great one for swimming too. Good. You have any questions about that one? Go ahead and put that in the comments too. We're going to go to one more ankle mobility exercise here that's actually for my ankle capsule, or that subtalar joint there in the bottom of my ankle. I see some questions coming through, and I really like that. I'll get back to address those. Let me get you started on this one, which I actually really recommend that you use a wall for it. So I'm going to show it one time on the wall, and then I'm going to come over here, and you're just going to pretend I'm using a wall. But if I go against the wall, I like to bring one foot, one knee down. You can do it standing up, but it's one knee down is a little bit easier. I'm going to bring my foot maybe start with like 4 inches towards the wall. Maybe you start with like 6, but you might move it back to 6 after you've had some time. I'm going to put both my hands on the wall here just to support a little bit of my weight, so a lot of it doesn't fall on this front knee. And then I'm going to try to press my front knee over my toe and try to get it up against the wall. You should feel stretch in your ankle. If you can touch the wall without your foot coming off the ground, then you can move your foot back a little bit and try to just get that ankle stretch. So I'm going to come out here and I'm going to do this so you can see me here, but feel free to go ahead and play with that one if you get the concept. There's a couple things to talk about here. I'm just going to do with this dowel. You should imagine this dowel is a wall. So my toe and my knee are pointing straight towards this dowel. I'm about 4 inches in front. Maybe I go 6 inches. I'm going to glue my heel to the ground just like this. And then I'm going to push the knee forward and try to get it towards the dowel. Can you see how I can touch that dowel? So I guarantee you there's a lot of you at home who cannot do this, touch the dowel. Do you see how far? So this is, I'm almost half a hand, I'd say almost 6 inches in front that I can still get to touch, right? And so this is going to make a big difference for you, for those of you, again, who have that dinosaur walking, because sometimes that's not knowing you're supposed to roll the feet, but you can see if I want to roll my foot back, let's say I'm doing a rolling triple. If I can't get that heel to the ground, it might be because I don't have that ankle mobility, or because I don't have that calf mobility, like we talked about the first time. Explore that. Try it on both sides if you haven't. Let me see if there's any questions here. Yeah, remind me at the end. I really appreciate the questions about the upper back and slouching, and I'll give you a little bit of a secret tip about that at the end. So definitely remind me at the end, and I'll give you a little bit of a good one for the slouching. So I really like that question. A lot of people sure have that. And that one is also going to come up a lot in our stability training, because we're going to do a lot of strengthening for the upper back and the neck. And again, if you have an issue with the mobility, doing a little bit less, or again, going into repetitions is really good, because you're going to explore a little bit better, where can I go? Instead of thinking like you have to push all the way, think more going, you know, how far can I go today, or even how far can I go this rep, that kind of thing. And I'll give some more modifications if you have specific things as well. See a lot of people asking about hip mobility and things like that. So we're going to get on, and I'm going to ask about that. Yeah, exactly, Cynthia, thank you. The idea with this exercise I'm doing is to keep the heel of the foot on the ground the whole time. Yeah, this one doesn't matter too much about my head or my back. It's okay to arch the back or move the head around a little bit because it's not really involved in the exercise. But that being said, what you can try too, and this is just kind of a little bonus for you guys as well. If you do not let your back arch, but use your core and use that posterior or tailbone tuck that we were talking about as you sit into this one, then you're going to get a little stretch through the front of your legs. And that's a hip flexor stretch, which gives a lot of you guys lower back pain. I'm sure a lot of you guys and gals, lower back pain. So you can kind of do both at the same time, or you might just alternate. Bring this foot a little bit closer so you take off the hip flexor, and then you can bring this foot a little bit further and press forward. Now, yeah, of course, anytime I have a knee on the ground, that's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. So what you can do is I have like these foam blocks. So I use a lot of these foam blocks just under my leg. If you have a yoga mat, you can roll it up and give yourself a little bit of padding. You can just use a pillow. The other thing you can do is you don't have to actually kneel down for this one. You can stay upright. It's just a little bit harder. So if this back knee is having an issue, I can actually stay upright just like this. I'm just going to bend my back knee a lot because I want to get this front knee bent so I can get a true ankle stretch. That's a little bit harder, so that's why I like the knee down version. But you can explore that for sure. I'm going to add in addition to this. Yeah, so yeah, I'll give you an alternate really quick. There's another way we can do this as well. Yeah, so yeah, I like that. Put up a pad or roll up towel. That's really good. Thanks for the help, Tessa. You can actually do this with a band or a strap. And I'll give this to you because I'm about to change an addendum, and some of you are saying they can't kneel. So two options if you can't kneel. One is just don't kneel. Just come up like this. Use the wall for your body weight, and then just think about pushing that knee forward. You just want to make sure there's not too much strain on your knee as you do that, and that's why I'm using the wall to support my weight. The other thing you can do is not quite as effective. Like I don't like it quite as much, which is why I didn't lead with it, but it is good. It is good if you can't kneel. So you can do kind of the same thing with the strap, and you can kind of pull your foot towards you with the strap, just like that. You can take a little bit out with the knee too. And you can do pulls like this. You can do this in a variety of positions. You can do it laying down on your back too. Some people like it laying down on your back. But yeah, you can do it like with a band as well. There are a lot of other stuff. Again, we do stability training. We can talk more about that. Now I want you to try for this one. I want you to try the same thing, but I want you to try to take your knee inside and outside as well. So I'm going to use this dowel, but if you're using a wall, it's the same exact thing. Now I want you to keep the outside edge of your foot on the ground as you bring your knee inside towards the wall. And then come back. And then you're going to keep the inside of your foot on the ground, push through the knees to the outside, and come back. I'm using this dowel just so you can see. You don't need a dowel. I mean, you can use a dowel at home, but you just use the wall. But I just want you to see that I'm in line directly facing you, big toe, knee pointed towards the dowel, and then going inside, and then going outside. Explore that on both sides, the inside and outside. Now what I'm doing is I'm stretching the inside and outside of the foot so that I let my foot better roll side to side, which can really help with stability as well. So if I have mobile feet and if I have mobile ankles, then I can have more stable knees because the ankles can take a lot of the changes in position. So especially if some of you have knee issues, then this could help you. Try that inside and outside. Maybe try pulling your foot up inside and outside like I'm just doing here. Maybe try that hip flexor stretch where you're tucking your tailbone under and sitting forward. Again, that's like a little bonus for you. And I'll give you a minute to play with that. Let me check, see if I have any questions. Appreciate all the questions. Good. Yeah, I got, good. We have about 27 minutes left. We've got some more things to show, and then we'll do a little bit of review. Thanks a lot, Diane. This is going good. take just one more minute to explore any of those, and then we're just going to move on. We're going to do a little bit more for the back, and then we're going to come a little bit to our foam rollers, and then we're almost done. Okay. So take a minute to clear that up, and then I want to show you a really important exercise over here using this wall, which is going to really help a lot of you with your body rolls or your spinal stiffness, and also just spinal health in general, honestly. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use this wall, and then I'll come off the wall so you can see me, off the wall. But at home, I really, really recommend use this wall. And what this is going to do is it's going to help us to get our back nice and loose for when I do my spinal roll. So it's just an isolated spinal roll. I'm going to go up to the wall, and this one's like the hinging that we started with. So just like the hinging that we started with, I'm not going to let any weight fall on the wall. I'm going to keep all the weight over my feet. I'm just using the wall as a little bit of feedback, okay? So I'm going to come up to the wall. I'm going to stand maybe 4 to 6 inches away from the wall. A little bit further out is harder. So if you're feeling stiffness or discomfort, move in closer to the wall. I'm just going to relax my whole body, touch my forehead to the wall, take my forehead off the wall, touch my nose to the wall. Take my nose off the wall, touch my chin to the wall. Take my chin off the wall, touch my chest. Take my chest off, touch my lower ribs, touch my belly, touch my hips. Again, only one part of the body touches at a time. Forehead, nose, chin, chest, ribs, guts, hips, forehead, nose, chin, chest, hips, guts. And then you can start to make it a little bit quicker if you want, but do try to keep it isolated. Go ahead and just explore that for a moment, and I'm going to come over here so you can see me do it not on the wall. It might not be as nice not off the wall, especially for many of you, and that's why I do suggest doing it on the wall. It's going to be a lot easier to learn at the beginning. But just pretending I have a wall in front of me, I'm going to go head, take my head off, nose, one part touches the wall at the same time, chin, upper chest, lower ribs, belly, hips, head, nose, chin, chest, ribs, belly, hips. And then you can start to try to make it a little bit smoother. You can smooth it out without needing to go quicker. Okay, you can smooth it out without needing to go quicker. So go nice and slow, go one part of your body at a time. Try to make it nice and smooth. If you have any discomfort in your back as you do this, just do a little bit less. Some of you may not be able to actually touch all those parts that I listed to the wall because this is the first time you've done any kind of ripple like this. This is going to help you down the road, but just take it easy at the beginning. And then if you do this, man, you're going to be surprised how quickly you learn how to isolate that movement. Yeah, these are like belly rolls. Yeah, so these are like belly rolls or body rolls, kind of like belly rolls, like a little bit like smaller, a little bit more isolated, but it's really the same. Yeah, exactly. That's so funny. So somebody was saying, I'm just gonna give you 30 more seconds to explore that. Alana, so funny. People say they look like they're having a seizure when you do body rolls. So you do this. Is all this stuff that we're doing here is exactly what Myles and Tessa try to tell you in the dancer development training, where if you want to get it in your dancing, then you need to exaggerate it a little bit in your conditioning. So that way, if you do it 100% of your conditioning, it can get 60% into your dancing. I'm not doing obviously this when I'm dancing, right? But I might, do something a little bit smaller. But the reason I can do something a little bit smaller is because I've done this. So now I want you to try to go the opposite direction. Okay, so I'm going to come to the wall again to show, and then I'll come outside the wall to show. But now I just want you to try the opposite direction again, 4 inches maybe outside the wall, maybe less than 4 inches even if you're new to it. And again, you don't need to go too much or touch every place against the wall. Just do your best. Hips go against the wall, then belly, then lower ribs, then upper chest, then chin, then nose, then forehead. Forehead comes off as the hips come towards belly, ribs, chest, chin, nose, head, hips, belly, ribs, chest, chin, nose, head. And then I'll try to come and do this off. Explore with that. I'll give you a minute to explore with this because it's pretty similar to what we were doing before. It's just going the opposite direction. Hips, ribs, chest, And keep in mind, I'm not doing it on a wall, so for me, it might not look exactly perfect, like every piece is coming to the same spot. So the reason I use a wall is so that I have that reference point, so every part of my body needs to go the same exact amount further. So I'm just doing a little bit of demo, but that's a good way that you can practice it against the wall. 40 seconds on this one, and then we're going to move on to do a couple of cool downs.
Gabriel, one of the things that was being brought up is how to balance forwards and backwards as you're doing the body rolls. And one thing that happens to a lot of dancers is they try to do body rolls with their feet planted right underneath their hips, and so they don't have a lot of places to transfer their weight from forward to back. I wonder if you could just demo that for people so they can see how in a body roll you're going to be transitioning your weight from forward to back, so you should stagger your feet.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're saying you like to teach 1 foot back and 1 foot forward this way?
At least a little bit, just so that they have
Yeah, you
some
can
kind
do.
of forwards and backwards.
You can do. Yeah, I like that. You can do that a little bit. I don't usually do that, but I like the idea to do a little bit forward and backwards. That way you have a little more balance. You are going to, and I can see that especially if you're in the middle of dancing too, because there's a lot more dynamic things happening. Another thing I might suggest if you're having a hard time balancing when you do these body rolls is that you go back to the hip hinges and even the pelvic tuck that we did at the beginning and practice learning, first of all, where is your balance? You might even go forward over your toe and just feel how far forward on your toe can you go, how far back on your heel can you go, and then try to see how much you can do that hinge on the balance in the middle of your foot. And then you might be able to easier see how you can do these body rolls. And now I'm really trying to exaggerate so you can see that I'm still keeping all the balance right over the middle of my feet. Obviously that takes practice, but going back to those hinging is going to really help you find the bottom of your feet. The other thing with the stability is, the other thing with the balance is we're going to do a lot of balance in the stability training workshop for sure. But I like that tip with a little bit forward and backwards. So that's totally cool too. So now let's just relax on that one. I want to take you this couple through cool down exercises. What we're going to do here is we have about 20 minutes left. I'm going to take us through just about 3 cool down exercises that you can do at the end of a long day of dancing, or at the end of a workout, or just at the end of the day at home. I'll show you a couple bonus things based on the questions people asked, and then I'll do a little bit of a review. Okay. And then try to be like the last 10 minutes. I'll do some question and answer. So if there's questions I haven't answered for you, make sure that you get those in the text box. We do need to end right on time, or maybe even a couple minutes before. So we'll wrap all this up, but you're going to have a review of all of that information, of all of this information via the video replay, which Tessa's going to send you. And also I have a lot of resources that I'm going to send you over at muvespace.com/dance smarter, but you're going to get all those links later on. Let's do a cool down exercise for your back, which I like to call an open book. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to face you, and I'm going to bring my knees to 90 degrees. So my hips are at 90 degrees, and then my knees are at 90 degrees. When you do this, you want to keep the top knee planted on this bottom knee, or on the ground, or on a ball, or something like that. So that way we're not turning our lower back, but we're just going to be turning from our upper back. Okay, so I'm going to come to this position. I like to rest my head on my other hand like this. Some people prefer to rest it on a ball or a pillow or a pad. That's totally cool. Whatever's comfortable for you. Round your back a little bit, just a little bit, not too much, but round it a little bit. Tickle your ear with your hand. Turn and try to lay the middle of your back on the ground. Now, remember we were talking about before, we were talking about doing repetitions, and we were also talking about releasing. So here there's a great opportunity to do a couple of reps, or especially when you're at the bottom, rather than pushing or forcing, try to take a few breaths. Use the breaths to do both the reps and the release. And go ahead and explore with that. That breath to release works dancing, by the way, too. You have a stiff partner, you can use a little bit of deep breaths, release your body. You can get your partner to release as well. So without saying anything. So that's a little bit of a ninja trick for you. I'm just showing the other side so you can see. I'm going to come around, but go ahead and explore with that one. I'll give you another minute. I'm just going to turn a little bit so you can see a variety of angles. And then I'm going to check the questions. Should be feeling super good on that upper back, no turning in the hips. Do both sides if you haven't done both sides. Let me see if there are questions. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot. Yeah, I like Lynn Smack. I'm not sure if that's how you say your name. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it. I like that comment that you're saying about, hey, it takes training. There's a reason why we started small, one joint at a time, and then built it up to integrate it, just like, and then we're going to get it into dancing. So you kind of want to go like that, right? So we built it up here. If you're having trouble with any of them, just start small and start with this one joints at a time. Again, you're going to get all that information later so you can return to it and come back to it. Okay, good. So what I want to do just with a couple other cool down exercises, and while you're doing this cool down, I am going to do a review for you of just everything that we've talked about. I want you to come back to that myofascial release, and I'm going to use this roller here. If you don't have something like this, you can totally use the ball or another ball like this. You can use something harder, but that's really not for the faint of heart, okay? Because it can be a little bit uncomfortable. And the first thing I'm going to do to release is I'm going to release, just like we did the bottom of the foot, I'm going to release my lats. So your lats are a muscle that makes people stiff like this when they're dancing. They pull your arms down by your sides, and that can be not good for, when we're trying to have a flowing, smooth movements, or people are engaging their lats too much. So this is going to help release those. It's also going to be good for people with desk posture because lats pull us into this position. So by releasing them, we can increase our posture a little bit. So the way I'm going to find that is I'm just going to reach my hand up and I'm going to pretend like I'm pulling it down, but I'm not going to let it, and then reach under. You should be able to feel this big muscle. I like everybody's hand going up. That's funny. Hi. And then you should be able to find this big muscle. All I'm going to do is just put this right on this. If you're using a ball, it's the same thing. The hand can go behind my head, and then I'm going to lie down on it. If you can't find a spot that's talking to you, it should be a muscle. Roll a little bit forward and backward so that you can find it. It should be pretty apparent once you find it. So we're just going to roll like this. And you can roll kind of forward and back on it, or you can even roll a little bit up and down. But once you find a spot, just like we talked about that release before, I'm going to give you 1 minute on this side, and then I'll tell you when to switch to the other side. And then we'll roll one more thing, and I'm going to do a little bit of review while you're doing this. So questions about the breathing. There's been a few questions about the breathing, and the first thing I want to say is it doesn't really matter. Breathe both ways. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to release. So really, like, hopefully what I can highlight for you is that thought process of trying to get it exactly right is kind of a part of that mental tension that a lot of us find so much when we do exercises, and we can talk about that more later, but you can breathe both ways. So just breathe whatever way feels good. If I'm settling down, I like to breathe out when I settle down. There's one exception to that, and that is when I'm doing a torso twist. And the reason why I'm breathing in, the reason why I often breathe in when I do a torso twist is so that I can fill the side of my ribs and I can get more twist or a little bit more of a stretch. And also that inhale helps me contain a little bit of my abs, which is going to help with the twist. That's kind of the only exception. Even that one I can do the other way though. I mean, I can do either way. So it's not that big a deal, but that's the way that I like it. That's the way I usually practice. Switch to the other side with your lats if you haven't already. So I just want to remind everybody before we get to a few questions, some of the things that we've done today is we started off with rolling with the lacrosse ball, right? We rolled a little bit on the bottom of the feet, and when we were doing that, we were talking about how rolling is really for release, and that's a lot of the mobility work today we were doing is for that release. We talked about rolling basically 2 minutes on each foot at the end of the day dancing or at the end of a convention. You can do that same thing with the lats where you're doing 2 minutes on each side with the rolling, okay? Now, speaking of your rolling, you should have a chance to do it on both sides. So let's go take that roller. And now what I want you to do is I want you to roll out your calves. So this is a place that gives us a lot of tension too. We did some calf mobility. So what I want you to do is find a spot in the bottom of your calf. You might do like we did in the bottom of the foot, and you might just roll back and forth a couple of times just to start getting that muscle used to this sensation. And then you can put the other foot on, and then you can lean forward or lift your bum up or do both to put a little bit more pressure. And then you can really slowly go back and forth, or even really slowly point and flex your toe. Go ahead and try that. Again, I'll tell you when to switch sides, and I'll keep doing a little bit of review for you, right? So after we did the rolling out at the bottom of our feet and talked about the rolling, then what we did is we isolated a little bit of movement in the hips. So we started talking about this hinge or this pitch at the hips. This one's super important. I recommend, if you don't know what people are talking about when they tell you that you don't have a good pitch, or you need to work on your pitch when you're dancing, you got to go back to practicing these hip hinges. It's also going to really help you with your balance, like we talked about a little bit later on. So we isolated the hinge and the tuck and the tilt, right? So we did the tuck and the tilt, and we isolated that from the hinge. We did the tuck and the tilt like this. And by the way, you can also try to practice a little bit of that, both of those, in your dancing stance as well. We didn't get to that, but that's kind of just a little bit of bonus for you. Then we started looking at that rib cage rotation, right? And we first did just standing or sitting, rib rotating. This is the one I would go to. Even for me, this is a go-to with a lot of my clients, no matter how skilled or highly trained or flexible. It's always a great warm-up, or while you're doing competitions or watching, to just do a little bit of this torso rotation, again with a little bit of core engagement. We did this rotation hinged over, and we did it in a split stance. And then we started adding a little bit of arm swinging, right? We did the arm swinging in neutral, and we talked about that release, breathing out to release. Go ahead and start rolling on your other calf. If you haven't started rolling out the bottom of your other calf, go ahead and start doing that with the roller. And then we did a little bit of walking. So we did this swing, and remember we talked about it can be as big or as gentle as you want. Always opposite leg moving with the opposite hand, getting that contra body movement, and just unlocking our body for contra body. And then we talked about making that a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller until I am actually now just doing dancing. Okay, and that's what we were working on. Well, of course, we threw a little bit, a couple teasers out along the way, but I'm just going to stick with highlights. After that, we made it a little bit more of a stretch by reaching with the arms and turning. Remember, we talked about keeping the arms a little bit in front of the body, so that the back stays nice and straight. Opposite hand moving with the opposite foot. And then we let the spine relax. We were doing a lot of twisting, and we did our ankle mobility drills for the calf and the instep. Just like that, we talked about going back and forth, increasing that ankle range of motion. And then we went to that ankle capsule or subtalar joint stretch by pressing the knee forward and backward, either on a wall or with the dowel. And we talked about going inside and outside of the foot. You guys should be doing on those on that roller, so you guys can kick that to the side. Let me get, if you have a strap or a band, I'll show you one more thing with that, and then we'll move on. After we did those ankle stretches, we did the spinal ripples against the wall. Right? And then we started to do our cooling down. We did our open books. Knees up, curled out. And we talked about this being a really good stretch for after dancing, after work, or after a workout. And then we went to rolling on our lats, 2 minutes each side, rolling on your calves, 2 minutes each side. Those are going to really help you after dance too, or after workout as well. We're going to take a couple questions before we go in a few minutes. So if I haven't answered your question, go ahead and put that in the notes. I did tell somebody I was going to give you something for posture for slouching, and you might actually really like this one. And this is just a little bit of a teaser because I think we're going to do a stability workshop later. What I'm going to do with this band or a strap is really works a lot better if I have an elastic, but this is something you can try. Is I'm going to put it over one shoulder, and I'm going to wrap it all the way around my body, and then put it over this shoulder. You can go another whole time around, and what you'll see is what that's doing, it's making me look super weird, number one, so that's fun. But it's also, if I relax, it pulls me in here because I've wrapped it across the front, okay? So if I just actually put this on and live, then what's going to happen is I'm going to reflexively start fighting it. because I'm a body, because I'm a smart machine, because my nervous systems react. And that's a big part of what we're talking about the mobility today, is that it's about your nervous system. So by feeding the dysfunction, what I'm doing is I'm strengthening the muscles and the nerves that fight against that. And then here I can use this wrap. I can dance with this wrap on. I can go and do exercise with it. I can do dishes. And the whole time I'm training myself to stay upright. Now, this is not something I would recommend you do all day at work, because you'll probably just forget about it and then just be in your normal position. But definitely you can try this while you're doing something where you can also be aware of your posture. That's a little secret tip. Don't tell anybody about that. That's a secret for you guys. Do a couple minutes of question and answer before we go. If you have other questions for me, you can find me everywhere at muvespace on social media at muvespace.com, move, M-U-V-E. If you want to find all the resources, there's videos, there is courses, there are free Sunday night workshops, and there's a lot of other dancer development training if you go to muvespace.com/dance-smarter, which I know Tessa is going to send you the link as well, along with the replay video for this. What questions have I missed here in a couple minutes before we go? Let's see. And you can always watch the replay. I love it. The band you can get any place, just a regular band, or use a strap. We can talk more about that later, but definitely grab a band for the stability workshop. Oh yeah, with the secret. Yeah, Tessa's gonna post this recording.
Okay, just to jump in here and answer some of these administrative questions. Yes, everyone who is registered for the Dancer Mobility Workshop and attended either of the sessions or was registered to get the recordings is going to get an email after today's workshop with both recordings. So don't worry, you'll get the one with the secret on it as well.
Nice, nice, good, good. Okay, people are saying appreciate it. Hey, I appreciate you all being here and giving me this opportunity again, and I really appreciate Tessa for not only giving us all this opportunity to being here and hosting this, but again, also for continuing to help us all practice and teach Dance Smarter. Hopefully I can help you guys out with training Dance Smarter this time and some other stability workshops. And then again, if you go over to muvespace.com or find me on social, anything like that. I did want to throw out one more thing. Somebody's asking me about hip flexor. It is an important thing, which I didn't really talk about, but the one we did for the hip flexor is we did this one, not for the ankle, but we talked about tucking the tailbone, pressing forward, and stretching through right here. That is so good for your hip flexors, your iliopsoas more specifically. That is something that gives people a really hard time. So try that out. And that's one. I know that we're going to wrap up here in a couple minutes, so if I haven't answered your question, get it on. Sweet. Simone saying the shoulder feels better. Oh, Ninth Fitness saying they feel gooey, so that's what I like to go for in my dancing. Good, cool. I'm seeing a lot of thank yous, so that's awesome. All right. Good, good. Awesome. Well, I think it seems like I've answered most of the questions on there. Tessa, did you see anything that I didn't?
There was one that came up a couple of times from different people, and that was stretches for the neck. I wonder if you could offer any kind of gentle mobility stretches for the neck that would kind of go along with the same theme that you were doing of releasing.
Definitely, definitely. I appreciate you saying that, and I can do that in just 1 minute here. I put the link in muvespace.com/dance-smarter, but again, Tessa's going to email you guys with a lot of links after this, so don't worry too much. I'm just going to sit here so you can see me, but you can do this standing up. It doesn't matter. And we're going to do a couple releases for the neck, okay? So we did talk about tucking your chin. I cannot tell you enough about this one, okay? So do not underestimate this tucking chin exercise. But I'm going to do a couple that have to do more with releasing. And you're just going to sit with your neck tall. Again, think neck tall. Reach your shoulder blades down or just let your shoulders fall. If you want to pull your shoulder blades down a little bit more, you can reach out to the floor on both sides, kind of like we did earlier. Head nice and tall. And now I'm going to do that same releasing. I'm going to let my ear fall to the shoulder, stretching this upper neck muscle, which gets really tense, your upper traps. And then let that spring up, come down. Now here I'm holding. If I release, I spring back up. So I'm just going to hold, release, hold, release, hold, release. And this releasing back and forth is what really helps stimulate these muscles to relax and develop elasticity. And then you can do that same exact thing by turning side to side. Now you're stretching a little bit more your sternocleidomastoid, so it's a little bit different muscle, but it also gets really tight. Turn, you should be able to feel that pull and then release. Turn, feel that pull, release. So those are two that that often I really go. If people are really more interested in the releasing and the idea of relaxing, we do Tai Chi online virtually, and this is a big part of what we talk about in Tai Chi training is how to do this release with the breathing and the mobility exercises. If you go to muvespace.com, hit library, and hit Tai Chi videos, you're gonna find a Tai Chi warm up that goes through a lot of these joint mobility exercises as well. So that's on there. But I hope those next exercises help you out too. All right, cool.
Okay, great. Thank you. Gabriel, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for everything that you've done. I'm seeing nothing but amazing, glowing comments coming through. And I just love how you're able to speak to dancers about how all the ways that they really realistically need to move in the dance as opposed to just general life mobility. So thank you so much for customizing this for us. And we look forward to working more with you. What do you guys think? Would you guys like to see us bring Coach Gabriel back for another workshop? Type it in the comments. What do you think? I know that we've already kind of planned. Oh, we're getting a flood of yeses already.
Nice.
I know that we've already kind of talked about a lot about the stability workshop that we had planned on doing. And this is something we might offer in a couple of weeks or a month or so. So to make sure that you get make sure you get notified when that workshop comes up. Make sure you're following our Facebook page, and you're also on our Dancers Insiders Club email list so you can get notified when we plan the next one, as well as where we send out regular tips and resources to help dancers #learn dance smarter and train dance smarter. So I've already sent it in the chat a couple of times just to make sure everybody gets that information that we're going to be sending out a follow-up email that has all of the links to what Gabriel was mentioning, as well as the recordings to both of these sessions. So you didn't have to take notes or anything. You don't have to worry about us if we did an exercise too fast and you missed how it was supposed to happen. You'll have the recording to reflect back on. So if there's no more itchy burning questions from the people, I wonder if there's anything else that you'd like to say, Gabriel.
The last thing I want to, the only thing I'd want to say is come find me out on the dance floor as soon as we can. I lead and follow, so I'd be more than happy to dance with anybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Catch me out there.
Thank you so much. It was so great to hang out with you. Thank you so much for your very professional guidance through all of this. I know our dancers are definitely going to get a lot out of it. And before we go, let's do a group selfie, shall we?
Nice.
So everybody, get your camera out, get ready, and we're going to.
Are we doing it? Am I doing it with my computer and my screen like this? Is this what I'm doing?
Yeah, I'm gonna switch it. So actually, Gabriel, if you could face the camera first, and we're all gonna take a photo with you facing the camera.
Nice.
There we go. And then all of us can take our phones and switch it into the shot like this. There we go. Oh, I like it with the strap. That's great. Very nice. Hold that pose for another second just so people can get it. Awesome. That's always a fun way to end every workshop, I find. All right, so what I'm going to do here is switch you to unmute so everybody can say goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Take care. Be safe. Be healthy.
Any other questions, everyone?
Thanks for the questions.